welcome back, everyone, to the Horror Shed podcast. We have a special guest with us, but first, I'm Jared, one of your co-hosts. We have with us the one and only South Jersey Jason.
The one and only, not the imposter going around Central Jersey saying he's me. If you want to dress up as Jason, that's fine, but make sure you title yourself correctly. Central Jersey Jason, or however you want to do it.
Have we found him yet?
No, not yet. Ron, I was at an event and a couple of weeks ago in Sayreville, New Jersey, and one of the vendors came up to me and said, "Oh, can I get your picture?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Do you walk around wherever it was, Brown Mills or something?" I said, "No, I'm originally from the Atlantic City area." "Oh, well, there's a guy dresses up as Jason and he calls himself South Jersey Jason." So I have a Roy amongst us.
Yes. That's funny, man.
Yeah, I will not stop until I find him. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, that's to me, that's flattery, you know?
Yeah.
So Jared, anything new in the horror world? Anything you watched or you seen?
Well, the only thing I really saw was a new trailer for the Russell Crowe demon movie. Forget the name of it right now.
The guy who's done like over like 100,000 exorcisms or
Yeah,
something?
he's been doing 30 exorcisms a day since he was a toddler. Yeah.
How'd it look?
It looks good. I'm
Does it?
kind of interested, and I'm kind of excited.
I hope it's not just like another exorcism movie because I was really let down with Pray for the Devil. That was just it had a nice twist to it, but in my opinion, the best exorcism movie we've ever had was The Exorcist.
It's gonna be hard
Yep.
to beat.
It is, unless Blumhouse pulls something out of their butts and
I got to tell you, man, they have their work cut out for them. I will go with The Exorcism of Emily Rose being second,
that's a good one. Yes,
but I stand with The Exorcist as the best.
yeah, Exorcism Emily Rose is good. You know, so was another good one, but the sequel was horrible.
Mhm.
The Last Exorcism, where it was like a found footage type thing.
Mm.
Yeah, that was a good one. And then the sequel was just a letdown.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I did see the comments people were leaving for poor old Russell. Like he looks like an old drunk man, you know.
I think that's kind of the point, though.
Well, yeah, but look. I mean, he's older now, but like the guy, like he reminds me of Christian Bale. He gets really into it. He'll put on like look at
Right.
Gladiator. He had finished a movie where he was a whistleblower and gained all this weight. And then, like in the same year, he also put out Gladiator. Like he shot him back to back and lost all that weight. So, I mean, as we get older, except for Ron, it's hard to maintain that physique.
Trust
So,
me, I'm having my struggles.
oh please, I saw a photo of you, like a gym photo or something, and you're like, 24-inch pythons there.
Hey, you'd be surprised what you can do with Photoshop.
So the only thing horror related that for me was I watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey last night.
Thoughts, go.
Do I dare to ask?
It was pretty bad. I was on my phone the entire time. After the intro, like when Christopher Robin goes back to 100 Acres Woods and you meet he's not the central character if you can believe that. It's like this whole group of 20 somethings that get an Airbnb and the acting was bad.
Oh,
The best parts for me was the opening children's illustration. So basically it talks about how Christopher Robin had Pooh and Piglet and Eeyore, and then as he got older he didn't visit them as much, and then he went off to college, but I guess he never really explained it to them. And then they run out of food, so unfortunately one of the animals was eaten by the other animals. But the kills were great, all prosthetics.
Oh, okay.
They were all I would say the kills saved it for me. They did leave it open for a sequel. As they were, I think, finishing it, they had already greenlit a sequel because of all the publicity they were getting.
Hmm.
Now, the masks were just your standard. I don't know what they were made of, but I have to give them credit. When Pooh showed affection at the end of the film, there were some type of animatronics in it. So he went from like happy to angry. But they did like a Halloween Kills style. Like, remember at the end of the movie, like when all the city folk like cornered Michael?
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of like that, but without someone holding an iron in their hand. But it was pretty badass. Pooh gave them a run for their money.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe that it was that awesome when you're calling him Pooh.
Yeah. And then I'm like, how the heck were they able to put this off? Like,
Public
call them
domain.
Pooh,
For
public
some reason.
domain.
Yeah, and
But
I was just gonna say I have absolutely no idea why Winnie the Pooh is in public domain. I thought that was owned by Disney, to be honest with you.
Disney owns the likeness. Like, you can't. They have copyrighted the likeness of the characters, so that's why they really didn't look like cute and cuddly.
Got it.
But Pooh did wear pants in this movie. We do have him wearing pants, not just a red shirt. So we are safe on that. And then I think that was really it. So Jared, you and I were talking off air, and we want to get our YouTube subscribers up there.
Yes, we do.
We're not very. We don't really do a lot on social media. I mean, we're both busy. We get a little bit of hits and whatnot, but I figured, what can we do to maybe get the word out that we want to get more subscribers? At least 100 for right now. I think we're at 56. 56. So that's what, 44 away. So I was going through some of my belongings, things that maybe I can part with or I have extras of. So back in May, I got Ron Sloan. He gave me a can of Ethel stew. Okay. So we got right there, and it says, best goddamn stew in the whole wide world. Ma Hubbard's fucking slop. So, and it's signed by Carol Lucatel, who played Ethel, and of course Ron Sloan, who played Junior. To me, the best characters in Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. So what we'll do is I'll take a picture. I'll put it on our Facebook page. Jared can do it on the Instagram page. And then, if you're a listener, please share our page. Because, Jared, you can see who subscribes to our page on YouTube, correct? Like the emails?
It depends on what settings they have open.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. All right. So what we can do is maybe have them comment also.
Yeah.
So between the comments, and if Jared can see who likes us, he'll give me that information. I'll take the information off of our social media, and we'll do a name randomizer, and a lucky winner will get. Now, don't eat it, okay? I mean, if you want to eat it, I think it's potatoes inside. It expires best eaten by 2024, so you're good for another 10 months or so. All right, so that's what we're doing. And just also, Jared and I were talking about doing our first filming location sometime early spring, and that's going to be in my favorite town, Blairstown.
Yes.
So we'll start the day off by having breakfast at the diner. We'll talk with Gary and Mike, and then I'm going to take Jared to all the good filming locations and give him a little brief background, and maybe we might run into some prophets of doom while we're out there.
Maybe.
When are you guys doing that?
Probably like April.
Yeah, April looks good.
Yeah. That way, because you're usually in March down here, we might get that one last storm before it's nice summer, spring, and green grass.
Okay.
So
I know I'm going to go up there on Friday the 13th in October. And I know
well, I'll talk to you off air about that. Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. So Jared, you want to introduce
real quick? Let's give a shout out to Rick Paulton for saying that he's not mistaking anything that's 100 years old is public domain. It is, unless it's recopywritten. And then Ashley Pagey stopped by to say she lurks.
Oh, she's streaming as well. So yep. I just turned on Twitch. So guys, if you are coming on Twitch, if you have any questions for Ron here, who wrote Sackhead, the definitive retrospective on Friday 13th Part 2, which I'll have Jared introduce him for us.
Yes. So we have with us Mr. Ron Gann, author of Sackhead, the definitive retrospective Part 2. I have. Yeah.
Guilty as charged. As charged.
So you're probably like, why, Brian? Why you double fist him? So my first copy.
I stopped asking questions about that a while ago because you're like me. You collect. I have 3 boxes of Freddy cereal. One because I wanted to eat it. One because I wanted to seal it. And one because I wanted the toy out of it.
Yeah. So the first copy I ordered from was strictly right through Ron, because he was going to have himself and Bill Randolph autograph it, although it wouldn't get to me until like the beginning of February when the book itself released on January 13th because he had to go out of town for a couple of weeks. So I was getting antsy and I'm like, I really want to read his book. So I bought it through Amazon and I had it actually on Friday the 13th, which was awesome. And I read it a lot while I was at work and at home, and it's a great read, which we'll get into and I'll talk about more. So let me just change my background so you don't look at my laundry. But Ron, how you doing?
You know what? I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me,
Yeah,
man.
I'm glad
Long
we were able
overdue.
to get you on. I know you've been busy, busy, busy.
Yeah, well, I'm here, large and in charge, and look at that backdrop,
Look
man.
at that back.
I feel super sexy right now. Let me tell you, that's awesome. Thank you.
I know I got the angel on my shoulder here. Oh, my other one there. Here you
Yeah,
go.
there you
So,
go. There you go. Yeah.
all right. So I'll start off, Jared. All right.
Kick it off.
All right. So you discussed this early in the book, but what was your first introduction to Friday the 13th Part 2?
Great question. And again, thanks for having me on your podcast. It means a lot because we are both all of us are like-minded, and so it's great to be in the community and evangelize this particular entry in the franchise. Real quick, by way of disclaimer, please feel free to interrupt me or shut me up because I'm known to babble. That's what I do for a living, by the way. So
Well, we like babbling and bantering on this show.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Because I love to hear myself talk. I was first introduced. So I'm to betray how old I am. I am 52 years old. So in 1980, when the original Friday the 13th came out, I was 10 years old. I was too young for rated R movies. The only movie that I had seen of any significance at that time was Jaws. But my first exposure to Friday the 13th was the series, that is basically the killing of Kevin Bacon's character in the original. That just was the rage back then. You guys are in diapers still. You're young compared to me, but when I was a coming of age, that was word was going around about that particular kill and
Well,
that
I don't even think Jared was in diapers yet.
there you
1980,
go.
yeah.
Yeah, how bad is that? So I just remember that movie caught the world by storm. You got to keep in mind the slasher film that preceded that was Halloween, and you can count on one hand the kills, and there's zero blood in the movie. So here comes Friday the 13th, and it's quite the opposite. Even though they had a lot of off-screen kills, the kills that they did have on screen were pretty gratuitous. In fact, the MPAA took a lot of heat for that, which caused them to really rape, if you will, neuter the part 2. So my first exposure to the franchise was the original, the lore around the original, but I was too young to see it. I think the year was 1982. I've told the story before. The year was 1982. I'm staying the night over at a friend's house with I have a twin brother. He and I were staying over at our friend's house, and his older brother was there as well. He was in a single family home. His dad was raising him and his brothers. But he was away at work. So we had the house to ourselves because he worked graveyard. And back then in 1982, this is going to really date me. If you had HBO and Showtime, and those were the only two paid cable stations at the time, at least in the Pacific Northwest, where I'm from originally, Seattle, it came with a lockbox, a black box, and parents could lock it, and it would scramble the channel so that kids weren't watching any dirty movies, which would be on the Playboy channel and whatnot. So, all right, yeah, right. So my friend had HBO and Showtime. So long story short, we broke into his dad's room, stole the key to the lockbox, unlocked the cable, and there was this movie on called Friday the 13th Part 2. And I remember being dumbstruck by it because I had heard so much about the original, having not seen it. It was forbidden fruit at the time at my age, you know. And so me, my brother, and my friend and his older brother, we decided let's watch this movie. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the color of the carpet. I remember the smell in the room. I remember the popcorn that we made because it had such an impression on me, so much so that when the movie was over, we all had our respective places where we had to go sleep, and we said no, we all stayed in the living room together and slept in our sleeping bags because nobody wanted to admit it, but we were too freaked out to go to our own rooms or whatever. So that was my first exposure really to the franchise in general and to Part 2 in particular.
All right.
Yeah. 1982.
So you're not an author. Let's see, I'm going off to a great start tonight. You were not an author by trade. Can you give us a little backstory about yourself?
Yeah, actually, I've written 3 books. A lot of people don't know I'm a religious guy. I'm a pastor by trade. And I've actually written 3 theological books, academic books that would bore everybody listening here, right? Tomes, really, 400-page dissertations and stuff. So I've written before. I haven't written anything or published anything in 10 years. However, if you've ever written a book, as I have 3 other times, it takes a lot out of you. And I actually went 10 years without actually putting a word down. That ship had sailed as far as I was concerned. Plus, it's not like most books sell less than 100 copies. Did you know that? 1.2 million books were sold last year. And of those 1.2 million books, 97% of them sold less than 100.
Wow.
And then the next range is...
Sorry, Ron, is that including, I mean, that's just physical, or is that both like digital books too?
Don't know. I can't answer that.
Gotcha.
I'm assuming it's physical books.
Okay.
So I was pretty much done writing. However, I'm a creative guy. I build dioramas. I'm into scale modeling, and Brian knows a little something about that. And I actually kind of hit a wall with that. And so I wasn't doing anything creative. And so last summer, early August, I wanted to do something creative, and I wanted to do something around my passions. And of course, Friday the 13th in general, Friday the 13th Part 2 in particular, happens to be a passion of mine. So I thought, well, maybe I'll write something. And the first chapter I wrote was, I think, chapter 8 on Russell Todd and his character, Scott. And I just wanted to kind of, put some thoughts down, see if I can if I could write something that was readable and engaging. And then I didn't put the pen down for the next 6 months. I wrapped up. I wanted to be done in December. I ended up getting done in early January. And Amazon printed it before I wanted them to, but they ran with it. At any rate, so I am an author by trade, not by profession. And I chose to write again, come out of retirement, if you will, to write for this movie because I had a passion for it, and I wanted to evangelize it. So
yeah. So before we get into the next question, let's go back to your diorama. So Jared, the dioramas that I have seen Ron do so far was he did Camp Crystal Lake from 1980s film.
Yeah, coffee table. Yeah.
Coffee table.
Yeah.
Diorama. You also did Hill Valley from Back to the Future, which was now. Do you still have that, or did you end up selling it?
That's the only one that I have not sold.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're in the early stages of doing Packanack, correct?
Yeah. I'm doing that on the side. I'm kind of transitioning right now. I'm taking a little bit of a break, as books always kind of exhaust me. So I'm actually transitioning a little bit to military models right now, just off on the side. I've done Jaws. I've done The Thing. I've done Friday the 13th. I did Jason's Sackhead's Sackhead's.
I remember that one. Yes.
Yeah. That actually because that was my first one. And
is the Jaws on your YouTube page?
It is, yeah.
I'll have to go back and check it out. I'm surprised I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the end, we'll give you time to plug all your channels and whatnot.
Yeah.
All right. So prior to writing the book, you cosplay as Sackhead. In my opinion, you are the most detailed Part 2 cosplayer. So we know why you chose Sackhead. You went a route 99% of Jason cosplayers don't go to. They go with the hockey mask because that's what he's most identified by. How do you find the appropriate clothing and items for it? Because yours is very detailed, like just almost like, in my opinion, it's screen accurate. So, and I know you didn't really start out screen accurate. I think little by little you acquired. Right. So how much, where did you find the shirt? Usually the shirt's the hardest thing to find.
Yeah. Well, you actually had something to do with the shirt, and I'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, I started cosplaying in 2019. One of the things that my wife gets ticked off about is, not ticked off, but she's just annoyed. I have no dimmer switch. I'm either on or I'm off in whatever I do in my life. If I'm going to get into Friday the 13th, I'm going to write a freaking book, right? It's like I just can't be a regular fanboy. And so I got into cosplay in 2019 because that's where my passion drove me. And The first time I actually did Sackhead was at the grand opening of the Friday the 13th Museum. And I think, Brian, you were there cosplaying as well.
Right, but our paths didn't. I don't think our paths
Paths did
crossed
not
out.
cross, right?
Yeah.
And although I stand by the costume and I'm very proud of that particular incarnation, as Brian alluded to, it wasn't as screen accurate as it would later become. The hardest thing for a screen accurate Sackhead Jason for the other cosplayers out there are two things: the mask, or the sack mask, and the shirt. And for the longest time, I had an imitation shirt that looked like the real thing, specifically or especially in pictures and from a distance, but was not the real thing. And I'm a stickler for as much accuracy as possible. And then I did a podcast, Cosplay of the 13th, hosted by our lovely host here and his partner in crime. And they actually sent me a link to actually have a screen accurate shirt. You know what? I never got around to buying it, only because let's be very clear, it's kind of expensive. It's a custom made article. So just to wrap up the story, our mutual friend, our French Canadian friend, gentleman by the name of Stefan, right? He's the guy that bought my Friday the 13th coffee table. He actually had a shirt ordered, but it didn't fit him appropriately. And as part of our deal and our transaction, if memory serves me right, actually it was for a different piece, but he gave me his shirt. So I have that shirt. And then another gentleman, actually a member of the Packanack Lodge Facebook group, was kind enough, out of the generosity of his heart, to send me another shirt, a little bit darker in color, but actually it's pretty screen accurate in terms of the pattern. So that being said, now I'm working on a more accurate pitchfork, and that's proven to be a lot harder than I anticipated. So there you go.
So where did you get the pickaxe from?
So I made my own pickaxe.
Okay.
So that's probably the best cosplay prop I ever made, because I modeled it off. I had a real one for photo shoots, and then I had a fake one for cosplay, and you couldn't tell the difference between the two. And then I ended up selling it to another cosplayer, and I transitioned to a pitchfork, which was not screen accurate, and that's what I'm working on right now. By the time I'm in Blairstown on October the 13th, if that in fact happens, I want to have a screen accurate pitchfork, and I'm working on that right now.
Now, like everyone knows, well, not everyone, but in the Jason cosplay world, like Jason's shirt in part 3 is like a Sears work shirt.
Yeah.
What's the do you know the brand of the flannel shirt that he wore in part 2?
Not the shirt, no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the
you know who probably knows is Stefan. He's a stickler for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He's got that encyclopedic knowledge.
Right. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Jared, you're up.
Hit me, Jared. Hit me.
I'm hitting you. Tell us how you came the right. Wait, hold on. Am I going right?
Yeah. He kind of did talk about that. So actually, I'll rephrase the question, because this is, you kind of answered it. Right, like, how long was it on your mental Rolodex that, maybe I'll write a part 2 novel or book? Like, how many years did you sit on it before you broke out the pen and paper?
Okay, so I studied the movie. I created a Facebook group for the movie, exclusive to the movie, which would include daily entries that would include trivia and did you know kind of entries that would post. I didn't do any of that with the intention, however, of writing the book and crystallizing it in book form. I just did it for fun, to get to know people in the community and for them to get to know me. So for 2 years, as I was running the Packanack Lodge Facebook group and collecting information and scheduling daily posts and whatnot, it never occurred to me to write a book. What happened in August is when I was done. Like I said, I'm a creative guy, and I need a creative outlet. I have to be doing something creative. Right now, I've got twine sitting on my desk. You can't see that because I blurred my background.
Yeah, we can see the image. Yeah,
and I'm making pine trees because I'm modeling right now. I always have to be doing something creative. And in August, it was really a 1-week decision. I'm going to write a book. Now, I didn't think I had never written a fiction. Let me rephrase. I'd never written a documentary before that was also a little bit fiction because as we'll talk about later, I recap all the characters in the movie by way of telling their story, and so I didn't know if I was going to be any good at it. I can write journalistically. I wasn't sure if I could write narratively, and
Gotcha.
I think I pulled it off. So it was a 1 week decision in August, and 2 years of studying the movie and evangelizing the movie through Facebook. It never occurred to me to write a book. I just flipped a switch one day in August, and bam! 6 months later, here you go. I'm doing a press tour.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go to keep with the flow, Jared. So we don't go off track with evens and odds. All right. So you have 12 different looks of, well, actually not 12, 11. Well, we'll throw in 12-year-old Jason in there too. So we have 12 different looks of Jason. Some could say that Jason in part 3 or 4 is the best incarnation of a pre-undead Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Why Jason part 2? What is it about just the style of him versus the other Jasons that would follow?
Yeah, I wish I could give you a profound answer. I'm going to give you the simple answer and the honest answer. It's because he's humanistic,
Yeah,
he's vulnerable, and yet he's intimidating. He's lethal, and he's virtually unstoppable. But guess what? You cut him with a chainsaw, he's going to bleed.
Right.
And that is appealing. He's 5'11", 175 pounds. That's Jason. That was Steve Dash's measurements when he filmed part 2. That is a realistic killer that could happen to any one of us. In real life, rather than some sort of abnormally large, demented monster. So there was that appeal. Now, I want to be very clear, and I've said this before to others in other interviews. When I have nightmares about Friday the 13th, because every now and then I'll have a nightmare about Jason. Who does it, right? You eat, you breathe, you drink this stuff, and every now and then you'll be chased in a dream. It is always part 3 Jason. That's the one that scares me. Part 2 Jason, I love because of what he represents. But in terms of frightening or scare tactics, it's the part 3 Jason. So I give love to part 3. But yeah, part 2 Jason is my favorite Jason only because of his humanistic, vulnerable, realistic side, but at the same time, intimidating, ferocious, lethal, psychotic. Love it. So
right. And people, like, I'll be in Facebook groups and they're like, oh, part 2 Jason was the worst because he got kicked in the balls and he grunted. Jason doesn't grunt. Well, this is still quote unquote human Jason,
right,
and he's still learning his craft. He's still new to the killing. I mean, we don't know what happened in between. We kind of know what happened in the fan.
Well, here's the funny thing. According to the canon, Jason didn't kill anybody up until he saw his mother
beheaded,
right? Or he didn't kill anybody then. It wasn't until the part 2 that he flipped the switch and it became the killer. You know, so there were no bodies missing in between the time that the 11-year-old and the 30-year-old Jason appeared. So anyways, I don't need to go down that.
That's okay. That's okay. All right, Jared.
I love Richard Brooker. I love Richard Brooker, though. He will always be the one that intimidates me.
For sure. Yeah. Yep.
So why write a book on just one movie that is over 40 years old in a storied franchise that boasts a dozen films?
I think it's one of the best ones in the entry, one of the best entries in the franchise. I think it's an unsung entry because we all know he doesn't have the hockey mask. He's got the hillbilly-looking sack mask, and that doesn't get a lot of love. Personally, I find that actually very appealing. And part 2, I think, stands out in terms of the acting and the characters. In the part 2, there's not one irredeemable character, not one scoundrel that you don't mind dying. The worst character you could probably indict would be Marta Kober because she wanted to go, see Camp Crystal Lake. She was being a bad girl in that regard.
Yeah, we didn't have the stereotypes like we have now.
No. In fact, they were all likable characters.
Yeah.
And you had a guy.
Although, I wouldn't mind if Ted got, his head chopped off, though.
Was he?
Yeah, I guess he was a prankster, you
Yeah,
know. So
I got you, but you know what? A
but
lot of people
he
found him
saved
lovable and
himself.
likable, you know?
Yeah,
So,
but you know, he's a booze hound, so
yeah.
that's what saved him in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. According to the novelization, he went home with the barmaid, if you will. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
part two, it's the characters. It's also the filmmaking. It's the I like the script and the direction, and it's the incarnation of Jason. So I
And
think that stands out, and I wanted to evangelize that. I keep using
yeah.
that word, but it's the only one that comes to mind. I wanted to
Well,
give this
plus it
particular.
had, in my opinion, and probably your opinion as well, the best final girl.
I mean, hands down. And that I
Yeah.
forgot to mention that. My favorite incarnation of Jason and my favorite final girl. And it's not just my favorite. I mean, I think objectively speaking, you could say she's always voted as one of the best final girls
Hmm.
ever, usually behind Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
that says something.
Yeah.
So
And she doesn't have the screen status of Jamie Lee, you know,
yeah,
because
that's right.
she was only in a couple. I mean, her overall resume, it's not comparable to
Right.
Jamie Lee
No, no,
because
no.
she
No, no.
pursued other
Right.
avenues, but she's in a lot of great 80s films. And the two that come off the top of my head as far as horror is this one and
April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day. Thank you.
And let
Yes.
me just clarify something. And I, with all due respect to Jamie Lee Curtis, you know, she's considered the greatest final girl because of the number of movies that she was a final girl. She was in Halloween. But in terms of her character, I'll take Amy Still over Laurie Strode any day. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, early Lori, she was it was was it flight or fright or flight,
yep, yep.
but then when they did the different timeline, she became like
Sarah Connor.
Sarah Connor. Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Whereas Jenny was Sarah Connor and whoever
In one
else.
night. In one night.
Yeah, yeah. I think she's really the only final girl that got into Jason's head. And I'm not, and I don't even want people saying, "Oh, well, Tina did that in part seven." That's two different films. This
Yeah.
is part two is grounded.
Yeah. So I just want to say this because I feel like it's my responsibility to say this, and I'm going to ostracize half your audience, but I'm one of those guys that recognizes the first four Friday the 13th. And I say this respectfully to you, Brian, because I know that you have some love there, but I acknowledge, recognize, and salute the first four films. Everything else you can have. So,
Oh, well, absolutely. Like I agree with you on that as well. The first four to me are my favorite.
yeah.
The ones after it,
Right.
I like the look of Jason.
Okay.
But I like out of the, we'll say, I'm not going to put part five in there because that's in its own league, but part six up, my favorite look is part seven. My favorite film out of all of them from after part five and up would be Jason Lives, part six.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I'll just write on your coattails. I consider part one the classic. Part two is the favorite. Part three is the iconic. And part four is the best. That's how I look at it. You know, so for me personally, that's how I categorize them. The classic, the favorite, the iconic one, and then you have the best one. So
All right. So
Oh, Mishu Moo, thanks for the follow. Look at that.
oh, where'd you see that at?
It popped up on the screen.
On Twitch?
Yeah. I have different stuff than you, bro.
Okay. So you did number 6, so we'll get into number 7. So in a nutshell, what can the readers expect from your book?
well, you'll forgive me for being self-indulgent here, but I think it's a good read. And I think that so each chapter I do a character so there's 16 chapters in the book, 3 of which are about the movie behind the scenes kind of thing, and then the wrap up. But you have 13 chapters that deal with the characters in the movie. So I start off each one of those 13 chapters with a character survey where I retell the story of the character for the less informed reader. I approached the novel, I approached the book, understanding that not everybody is as well versed in the movie as I might be, or even this audience. And so I retell the story of the character, after which I then transition to interviewing the actor or actress who portrayed that character. And then I wrap up each chapter with a small section called Ask and Answered, where I deal with problematic questions about the movie or the script or the scenes or bloopers and so forth and so on. So I think the readers can expect a multifaceted ride that includes fan fiction in terms of not fan fiction, but a fictional side talking about the character, a biographical side interviewing the actor, and then some trivia.
And that's what I really enjoyed about the book, because I have yet to get my hands on a copy of the novel by Simon Hawke. It's just, it's eluding me.
Yeah. Good luck on that. It's hard to get. It's hard to get. Yeah.
So when you did like the character biography, is that all you, or did you take some information?
That's all me.
Okay. Because I was wondering.
The novelization does not give backstory. The novelization, and if the novelization followed the script beat for beat, which is the only ding that critics really have of the novelization. There's no real insightful information. I disagree with that. I think that there is a couple of things that the writer did, Simon Hawke did, but for the most part, it's beat for beat. So I went back and I studied the lore in terms of studying Jason and how he came to be, Pamela, and then for each of the characters. It's interesting, like Bill Randolph's character, Jeff. Bill told me, sorry for the name drop, but Bill told me privately that either it was at a con or we were together. I can't remember. Oh, I think I was interviewing him. He told me that he always felt like Jeff was a grease monkey. Now, that's not in the script. There's no backstory to that.
He kind of gives off the vibe of
he loves his truck, right? He loves his truck. That's his baby. So I threw that in. So I took some liberties, and that was me. I put that in the character survey that I did. So I would do some of that stuff. Most of the time, I tried to stay as canonical as possible, because I don't want to get sued, and I also don't want to. I don't want to be fake, so I tried to stay as canonical as possible. And by the way, Paramount wouldn't sue me. They are big fans of fan fiction. I did not know that going in. I had
this is. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I know you obtained the services of Larry Zerner, correct?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. So you probably knew there was a fan fiction graphic novel that was going to come out on Kickstarter.
Very much so. Yeah.
Now, how or why, if you can give me a reason and maybe your opinion, that got shut down, and that was not profit by Paramount.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
That graphic novel was fiction. My book is not fiction. My book book is a journalistic approach to the movie. I simply retell the character story arc. I use a little dramatic flair. And at times a little bit of license, but not enough to bring lawyers.
Okay. Is that why you got Larry? In case you don't know, Jared, Larry Zerner played Shelley in part 3. Is that why you retained his services for that very reason?
That is exactly right. And let me just tell you, I actually had 2 versions of the book. There was one version that I had that was completely neutered, had no pictures in it. And I was nervous about the character survey where I'm retelling the story of the characters, like that might be somewhat invading on copyright. Right? I met with Larry. He's like, dude, you're covered. You're gold, even with pictures, because of the way the book was.
Gotcha.
And that it's a journalistic piece, and it is. Whereas the graphic novel was a fictional piece. It was adding to the lore. I'm not adding to the lore. I'm actually complementing it.
I'm pissed off Paramount because I had bought the I don't know, it came in the hardback cover in the slip case, and you ruined it for me. Okay. So we'll skip over number 8 because he kind of really did talk about that. So I'll go with number 9. What part of the book are you most eager for the fans to read?
Yeah, that's I've been asked that before, and I'm going to be honest with you. That's like picking your favorite kid. It's a difficult thing to do because it depends on what side of the bed I get up in the morning, because sometimes I'm just a real big fan of the character survey, telling the story of the character. I felt I did a really good job on that. But then I think about the interviews with the actors, and that's what draws me to the book as a fan, what the actors had to say. And what the movie means to them. But at the same time, I'm such an egghead. I love the trivia part. So, good grief, man. Hey, man.
The book to me, I didn't want to put it down, even though like I had to
Thank
go to
you.
bed or
Thank you
something.
for
You're
that.
welcome. I love the way it was written. My favorite term I like to use when I'm talking to fellow horror fans is it's like sitting around a table and they're just having a discussion.
Yeah.
Because there are some books that read like radio instructions, like a biography, like like a book, like in like your genre, and I'm not retaining it because this is the way it's written. You're talking to us, like I could hear your voice, because I know your voice in my head, and it's an easy read. And I enjoyed like I said, the background of the character, and then how you flowed into the interview, and it just flowed. It was a very good read. Like,
Thank you.
you're welcome. This is probably the first book that I have read in a while where I didn't want to put down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I'll say something along those lines. And again, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back because I was very insecure when I wrote the book, whether how it would be received. But I knew I was onto something when Russell Todd, Bill Randolph, and Lauren Marie Taylor got behind it.
Nice.
And got behind it in terms of promoting it in their own unique ways. And that meant something. And they also, I felt, took a liking to it. So thank you. I received that. I appreciate that.
You know what would be a great photo op? You know how Lauren Marie does her brown panties photo ops? You should get, if you ever come across, I'm sure you will, you'll be at a convention with her.
Yeah.
Get a pro op of her in her brown panties pretending to read your book. There you go.
Yeah, there you go, man. I mean, it's such if I can just geek out for a second, it's such a fanboy dream come true. That the movie that impacted me, my favorite character in the Friday the 13th series is Jeff from part 2. I just always gravitate, and to have befriended the actor who played him, to actually go to his apartment in New York and to hang out with him with my wife, to Lauren Marie Taylor to be interviewed by her, and Russell Todd to be kind of quote unquote drinking buddies with him, as it were. It's very humbling. It's awesome. And yeah, man, this is
that's how I feel when, back in May, I'm hanging out with the people that were a big part of my childhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
and that's what it boils down to,
Yeah, I mean, hell, now I don't know if he was just stroking my ego, but Ron Milky says he's got my picture on his fridge. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I like to believe so.
Dude, embrace it. And as far as you know, that's true, man.
Yeah. All right, Jared.
All right. So, is there anything special that your book contains that no other book written on Friday the 13th managed to capture?
Yes, yeah. And I'm really excited about it. I think there's a handful of things, actually, because no book has been written on Friday the 13th Part 2 exclusively. So in that regard, it is a standalone book. But if you're really talking about something that really makes it stand apart from, say, Crystal Lake Memories, which is, let's be honest, the Bible for the franchise. Although it's a cursory overview of each entry in the franchise, it's not an exhaustive review of each film, right? But it's pretty scholarly, right? And
no, for Bible. Sure.
But I had
to... Sorry to cut you off real quick. So I got it on my Kindle because at the time I just couldn't afford the actual price for it. But I just got it on eBay a couple months ago for $30. So, which is a steal.
Yeah, and it was helpful to me in writing my book as well. I tried not to go to it. I'm going to get back to the question. I haven't forgotten it, but Crystal Lake Memories, I tried not to go to it or cite it too often. Otherwise, I'm just regurgitating somebody else's work. But it was very helpful to me on certain people for whom interviews of works were elusive. Steve Miner was one. I met Steve Miner in the past, but that was before I was writing the book. So had I met him when I was writing the book, I would have asked him all kinds of questions. So that being said, okay, now I forgot the question.
the hardest thing about is there anything special that
Yes,
your
thank you,
book?
thank you.
Yeah.
See, that's what happens when you're getting your 50s, guys. So we have a mutual friend, Brian, you and I. Her name is Stacy. Stacy has she has a promotion agent. She's an agent, as it were, convention agent for the surviving cast of Friday the 13th Part 2, with the exception of Warrington Gillette, and she represents everybody else. And Stacy and I have we struck up a friendship over the years, and so that has allowed me to volunteer to work on her team with the Friday the 13th Part 2 casts on occasion at various conventions. And that's how I got to meet the guys and gals and get to know them and interview them. And Stacy made privy to me a picture that I put in the book that no other book and no other collector has. We did post it in Packanack Lodge once under a copyright. And that is a picture. If you read chapter 3 in my book, you will appreciate the importance of the picture. It's a picture of Warrington Gillette and Steve Dash together. For one of the few times ever, these were two men, both of whom played Jason in Part 2. They were two men who had no love for each other. And as a favor to Stacy, Steve Dash and Warrington Gillette agreed to take a picture with Steve Dash holding a machete to Warrington Gillette's neck. And you know what? Warrington Gillette was very affable, and he went along with the gag, and I give him a lot of points. And Stacy held on to that picture, and it was the Magna Carta to her. And it wasn't until after Steve died that she felt compelled or allowed to go public with it. And so I badgered her about that picture because I knew about it. I'd seen it. Like I said, we posted it under a copyright on Packanack. And she graciously allowed me, after a lot of painstaking conversation, she allowed me to put that picture along with, so long as I included a disclaimer. And so I wrote a paragraph that she wanted me to talk about. And basically the gist of it is that the two guys, even though they didn't like each other, even though they were at each other's throats, on that particular day, they were warm to each other, and they did it all as a favor to Stacy. So the book contains that picture. And if you are a Friday the 13th Part 2 fan, that is a huge picture.
Yeah. Do you know the story behind their animosity, Jared?
I do.
Oh, no, I was asking Jared.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say it because I wrote about it.
I heard about it, but I don't remember.
So in a nutshell, before Steve Dash got into the convention world, Warrington was pretty much saying the convention scenes, I'm Jason, like throughout the whole movie. So once Steve got wind, that's when he started doing conventions. And when he would sign his name, he would always put under it the real Jason. So Steve Dash, Jason Part 2, or the real Jason. And I believe when Steve confronted Warrington, it got really heated. And Steve's when you look at him, you think he's
a New York guy.
You think he's a lieutenant in the mob.
That's
because
exactly
he's a New
right.
York guy. He could have been like Joe Pesci's right-hand man in all the mob movies. But he was such a nice guy, and I was thankful that I got to meet him. I think Monster Mania was the last convention before he got sick and then eventually passed away.
I'm jealous. I never got to meet the man.
Really? Wow.
I never got to meet Steve Dash or Richard Brooker.
Richard Brooker's the only one that now I bought an autograph off eBay just to have it in my collection.
Sure.
But he's the only Jason where I did a private signing with Derek Mears because it was in 2020 and there was no conventions. So Brooker and Mears are the only Jasons that I haven't met in person.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
I'll say this. I don't know if we'll talk about it later on. I chose not to talk about the confrontation because I wanted to stay away from the salacious. However, if you're going to write an exhaustive retrospective on a movie, you got to go into the weeds a little bit. And so I do in chapter 3 address the feud between the two actors, how it came about. And I do kind of take sides.
I agree with Steve.
Yeah.
Warrington was just in, well, he was in what, two scenes, of course, the end scene,
Yeah.
and then he had killed Crazy Ralph.
Crazy Ralph.
Right, yeah, but
and there were possibly some ancillary shots of his hands or feet, but yeah, he was only on set for 2 weeks, and I don't want to tip my hand, but for your listeners out there who maybe aren't into reading or are into it, you want to read chapter 3 because I deal with it there. I come out of the gates with both guns blazing, and I start with Jason, and when it comes to the characters, and I deal with the issue at the get-go. I've met Warrington Gillette a handful of times. I find him to be a very gregarious guy, very nice guy. He wants to work out with me. I love that about him, But the truth of the matter is, and I don't think he's got ill intent. I really don't. I don't think he's duplicitous, but I think that he misremembers a few things. I'll leave it at that.
gotcha. I know. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have yet to meet him in person, so like I don't have his autograph of any kind. So I'm kind of on the fence about it.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I mean,
I maybe off the record we can have a conversation, but yeah, like I said, his line goes out the building every time.
Really,
He loves his fans.
Mm-hmm.
He loves the attention, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay. So what was the hardest thing about writing the book?
Yeah. I'll give you 3. Marta Kober, Walt Gurney, Jack Marks. Those are 3 actors in the movie who are either dead or are very reclusive. And
Okay.
to write an exhaustive retrospective that includes character synopsis, and interviews. Oh, excuse me, and Tom McBride, who's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 of those 4 names I just mentioned to you have passed away. Marta Kober is very recluse. She's hard to get a hold of. Even her agent has a hard time on occasion. And I had to write exhaustively about 3 individuals who are no longer with us. And of those 3, 2 of them are not on record at all about their thoughts on Friday the 13th.
Oh, wow. Rick Paulton said he loved chapter 3. He read that first due to Lauren's interview with Ron.
Oh, thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching and listening, man.
Yeah, so I learned a lot about Walt Gorney from your book. I really didn't know too much about him. Now, Stacey, does she represent Marta?
She does.
She does, because I think she's only done, to my knowledge, a convention, at least one convention in the past 5 to 10 years that I can remember.
That's correct. I was supposed to meet with her in 2021 in Atlanta, and unfortunately, she was a no-show. So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, so if those 3 chapters, writing about those 4 individuals in a way that was academic, scholastic, and worth the reader's money and time was very much a challenge. And so what I did was I relied on other cast members who worked with those individuals. And of course, Bill Randolph, he's got the longest screen time in the movie of all the characters, and he actually worked with all of those characters, or all of those actors. Walt Gorman at the phone booth, seeing if you remember. Yep. Jack Marks when he's apprehended in the woods with Marta, and of course he worked with Marta, and he knew Tom McBride personally as well. So I relied heavily on him, of course, other cast members as well, and then some scant interviews that I was able to find here, there, and everywhere. That was the hardest thing about the book. Was writing about those guys. Yeah.
Very good.
How long did it take you to research and write the book from start to finish?
Yeah, I would say, if I were to be really fair about it, I would say 2.5 years.
Wow.
It only took me 5 months to write the book, but I had spent 2 years by way of Packanack Lodge, the Facebook group that I used to be the admin of. I've since relinquished that to somebody else, but I spent 2 years studying all the tidbits of the movie and getting corrected here, there, and everywhere, and getting to know the cast. And so everybody keeps saying to me, "Hey, so when are you going to do part 3? When are you going to do part 4?" And I don't mind. I would love to do them, but it's not going to be just a 5-month thing.
Yeah, people don't
yeah,
realize when you're writing like a documentarian book,
yeah,
all the research you have to do, and
that's right.
you
Otherwise,
gotta
it's
get
not worth this book is $20.
yeah,
I mean, do you really want to spend $20 on just a popcorn book that really, I mean, that doesn't really deal with anything except, hey, I
right,
really like the movie. I really like the movie. So,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
it's going to take some time.
So getting back to Bill Randolph, he wrote the foreword on the book. I had the pleasure of meeting him about 2 years ago at the premiere of His Name Was Jason, and he seems like he's the kind of guy you want to go out drinking with.
That guy.
How did you recruit him to be a part of the book?
Okay, and don't let me go more than a minute or two on this answer because I can go forever. But what I love about Bill Randolph, Lauren Marie Taylor, and Russell Todd in particular, Amy Still too, Amy
Mhm.
Still, is when you're talking to them, you are the only person in the room. These
Mhm.
guys are pros, man. They really know how to
Yeah.
engage people. So I first met Bill Randolph in 2021 in Atlanta at Days of the Dead. I was assigned to work with him on a Friday night. We struck up a decent friendship, but he's friendly with everybody. But
Mhm.
he really let me pick his brain as a fanboy. So that was our first meeting. I worked with him again at length 6 months later in Chicago. Also, Days of the Dead, if I remember correctly. And I worked with him and Russell Todd beside me. I was their handler, is what we call it, right? And there I really got to know Bill on a deeper level since we spent 3 days together. And that goes for Russell Todd as well. I mean, we talk, I got to know them when we were talking about personal things beyond just the superficial and exchanging cell phone numbers, that kind of thing. Then we had the mini-con in New Jersey that Brian was a part of, where I cosplayed alongside Brian and also handled or worked with Lauren Marie Taylor and Bill Randolph. And by that time, we had a good rapport, Bill and I, a good. Yeah, we had talked a few times in email and texting, and so when we met in New Jersey, we were pretty close. And so we ended up staying in touch via texting and the occasional email here, there, what have you. And then I started writing the book. And Bill just made himself available to me in order to interview. And to be honest with you, any writer writing a book on Friday the 13th, Part 2, worth their salt, when they want a foreword to be written, they're going to go to Amy Steele. And I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't think about that. And I would love to have had Amy Steele write the foreword. That being said, I didn't think she would do it. I don't have the relationship with her like I had with Bill or the others. And honestly, I'm the fanboy, and Jeff was my favorite character, is my favorite character, and Bill is one of my favorite, if not my favorite actor in the franchise. And so I said, I'm just gonna ask him, and he was honored to do it.
Nice.
Honored to do it. He was humbled, and it floored me. So that's how I basically built a relationship with him over the course of 3 conventions, and then some phone calls and text messaging and emails sporadically here, there, and everywhere. And then when I started writing the book, we really started to connect because I had to interview him a couple of times. And then when he started writing the foreword, we were on the phone quite a bit because he took it very seriously. He was very sober-minded and wanted to do the fans right, wanted to do me right. So that's the 30,000-foot view on how I got Bill Randolph
Okay.
to write the foreword. And he was gracious enough to sign 40 copies of the book, of which you are a recipient.
Yes.
My wife and I drove to New York over the weekend, took him and his lovely wife out to dinner, stayed in their apartment, and just, yeah, it was a night to remember. So
Very
That's
nice.
so awesome.
yeah.
So you write under the pen name R.G. Henning, but everyone
Yeah.
knows you on social media by your real name, Ron H. Gann. Why
Yep.
a pen name?
So my wife, I love my wife to death. My wife worships the ground I walk on, but she absolutely cannot, does not, and will not understand my love for horror movies, right? For every horror movie that I take her to go see with me, I have to see 2 rom-coms.
Oh, man.
Oh yeah, it is not her. I mean, I remember I took her to see Halloween Kills. Of course, she's seen all the Halloweens with me, but I took her. She was so mad at me because that was a very brutal movie, right? That was a Michael Myers movie, and she was the lights went up. She looked at me. She just had rage in her eyes. She was so mad at me. So, anyways, so when I'm writing this book, my wife said, "Will you do me a favor? Use a pen name." And I said, "Well, why?" Because I didn't use a pen name for my other. Here's the deal. The gist of it is, by virtue of my occupation, I'm a pastor. Sometimes religious people can get uptight, right? So I said, "Sure, no problem." So I did it as a favor to my wife, but she's. I go, "What? Are you ashamed of me?" She goes, "No, I'm just mad at you." So,
So at least we know, because of his love of horror, him as a pastor is not going to ban dancing in any towns or
no,
things like that. So you got a good pastor there.
that's right.
Yeah. So can we expect your wife in Blairstown in October?
So the funny thing is that I'm actually doing Monster Mania in New Jersey
Okay.
next month it was supposed to be the first 4 final girls, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Dana Kimmel has had to cancel. My wife was going to come and work that convention with me, and Stacy approved. However, it turns out from logistics and some other things that's not going to happen. Blairstown.
Mhm.
You very well may see her. I'm trying to get
I
her out.
better. You tell her I want to meet her.
Well, you know what?
I want to shake the hand.
Yes. Yeah. And let me tell you something. She makes me look so good, right? I kind of overshot the bow when I got her. I'm a bit of an overachiever, so I always try to pimp her. I'm like, come on, I want to show you off because people think I'm a geek. They're going to think I'm cool when she's just like, so trust me, I'm trying to bring her. I'm trying to bring her.
Because I'm hoping Irene can come, so at least she'll have an
Yep.
excuse to walk away.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife would enjoy your wife quite a bit.
Better. So. Also, when Dave gets back from Germany, I'm gonna ask him if he was making plans because he's been dying to do a Ralph kill scene because he now has like a great Ralph cosplay.
Yeah, he does.
So how great would that be that we can towards the end of the day, just find a tree and get you to kill
do a
Dave.
reenactment.
Yeah.
I always hate that. I hate that scene, although I wrote about it in the book because for the longest time, I hated the way that scene was filmed.
Oh, it's horrible.
It is horrible. And, one of the things I say in the introduction to the book is I take the movie way more seriously than it deserves. Let's just be honest, right? It was a low budget flick in 1981. They filmed it in 1980. They weren't really treating the script like it was sacrosanct and making sure all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed when it came to story beats and whatnot. And I actually wrote a section on that kill for Crazy Ralph and how it could actually be legitimate,
right.
even though he brings the barbed wire down over the tree and even though he's like 3 feet higher. So anyways,
right.
I digress.
Getting back to your wife, now we know she wanted you to have a pen name.
Yep.
What was her reaction when you said, "Honey, I'm writing a book"?
Yeah.
And then did she help you as far as proofreading? And now we knew this was going to take off.
Yep.
And this is going to be like a big thing in the community. How has she been since, like, with all this publicity?
I'm really glad that you asked that question. So the 3 previous books that I wrote, my wife proofread every single page. She did not proof any of this. And one of the reasons is I wanted to keep it from her because, like I said, she hates horror. Mm-hmm. She actually read 1 chapter and she wanted to have more. The problem is that I'm trying to get this thing done. And my wife is a busy woman. She's a corporate professional corporate manager. And so her time is limited and I could not get her pinned down to read a chapter. She's like, I have to do it this weekend. I'm like, babe, you don't understand. So I recruited some other proofreaders, some other editors and whatnot. So my wife, like I said, she's my biggest fan. She worships the ground I walk on, but she's pretty dismissive when it comes to my creative projects. So every diorama that I built, every model, she does this. Well, isn't that sweet? That's nice. And then it's very condescending. She's not trying to be, but she is. And then I sell them for $1,000, a couple of $1,000, and all of a sudden I'm her hero. All right. So the book comes out. So I write the book, and she's like, well, basically she's thinking, well, here's Ron doing his little creative thing. That's cute. That's sweet. So the book has been very successful and has sold more than all my other books combined, and has how do I say this? Has blown my wife away. She's like, keep writing.
Let's go see all the horror movies.
True story. This is a true story. It's real quick. We're in the hot tub about a month ago, right? A month after the book has been out. We're in the hot tub. We're just, rejoicing. And I'm talking to her about the book and how it's being received and the support. And normally in times past, she would be rolling her eyes would gloss over. She'd be like, when are we going to be done talking about this juvenile stuff? I'm telling her about what the book's doing and how it's being received. And she looks at me and she's like, you're going to do part 3, right? You're going to do part 3. I'm like, are you kidding me? Good grief! I couldn't believe how.
Well, if she wants you to continue writing, you gotta tell her I want to revisit this rom-com thing. So how about for every horror movie, it's one rom-com?
Well, the funny thing is, I like rom-coms. I just don't like them when they're on the Lifetime channel.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So now you understand my pain, right?
Oh, that is like, oh God. They're all the same. They're all the same plot. Oh, I feel sorry for you.
I know. But if you would have saw her eyes when Halloween Kills was over and she was looking at me, I'm like, okay, I'll watch a few Lifetimes. She was mad. She was so bad. It was so funny.
I don't know about that. Anyway, do you have any plans on hitting the convention scene to promote your book?
Oh, yeah. Actually, a handful of copies are going to be with Lauren Marie Taylor next week, I think it is, and for autograph from the talent.
Okay.
And then I will be at Monster Mania with Amy Steele and Adrian King. So
are you a handler that weekend?
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly
I thought you were going to be a vendor to sell your book.
No. Well, I could do that, but I'd have to be a vendor. You have to obviously pay.
It's expensive.
And to be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, we're going to see how the book does on the convention circuit. Kimberly Beck's going to be there as well. Yeah. So, we'll see how it goes. I'm not opposed to being a vendor, but right now I don't need to be one. I have an outlet. Stacey's willing to, to work with me, and because she wants to promote the book as well. But let's see how it goes. Well, it's a possibility, but right now we'll just be with the talent.
I know we talked about it briefly, but for Friday 13th in May, what I can say on the air right now is the diner and I are working together to kind of do something for Friday 13th, not on the scale of what it was in May, but just have horror themed vendors on the field that day. I kind of went over some preliminaries with Mike, the manager. So obviously we would want you there as a vendor, signing your book, selling your book, doing all that.
Pimping myself.
Pimping you out, yes. But off the air, I'll talk to you about what we kind of want to do.
Okay.
All right. So now the floor is yours. Tell us where we can find the book, your social medias, your YouTube channel for your diorama.
I have one question before we let him go crazy.
All right.
Who designed the cover of the book? Because I love it.
Thank you so much. I did, but the Sackhead Jason character is not my artwork. That was actually graphics and images. An artist on DeviantArt put it together. It's not copyrighted. It's not owned by him. He put it together based on some images from the game. He was using technological jargon that I didn't understand. And because I reached out to him and said, I want this for my book cover. And he said, you can't have it. And I said, you're kidding me. He goes, well, I don't own it, but I don't like to share my work. And I said, well, if you don't own it, man, I'm taking it. But what I did is I changed it, and I added the pitchfork and other things. I did my own graphic stuff. Everything is all me, with the exception of the heart of Sackhead, or the image of Sackhead. That was done by another artist using some images from the game. And then I took it, manipulated it, made it do what I needed it to do, and then added all the other stuff. So I designed the book cover from soup to nuts based on Amazon's criteria and what they demanded. So
it's really nice.
I got another addition question. Do you plan on one day having it like available on Kindle? Like, is that like a pain to do?
No, it's not a pain to do. You're not the first person to ask me. The demand for Kindle in our community is not all that great. I mean, a couple people want it and they're waiting for. But can I be honest with you?
Mhm.
I mean, it's pennies when it comes. I did not write the book for profit. I want to be very clear.
Right.
But it's not Kindle's not really a money.
Yeah, I guess your book's like $20, so on Kindle it'll be like $2.99, something
Exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I haven't really. I mean, it wouldn't be difficult for me to make it available, but I'm going to let the paperback run until it's out of gas and that kind of thing. So
Gotcha.
that's
All
a
right.
business. That's a business decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the floor is yours, Ron, if you want to plug everything and anything.
I only have two things I want to plug. Thank you for the opportunity. First of all, Packanack Lodge. That is the name of the Facebook group that I created back in 2019, I think it was, dedicated exclusively to part two with daily posts from the admin. But it's also open up to group members to participate and share photos and stories and whatnot. So by all means, join Packanack Lodge on Facebook. We'd love to have you. We're up to I think we're over 2,200 members or something like that. So not
And
bad for.
it's strictly if group members wanted to talk, it's strictly part two stuff, but really, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, and then I have a YouTube channel called Plastic Valor. It is a channel. It used to be Mr. Craftician. That might sound familiar to some of the listeners, but I've changed the scope of the channel and the focus on it. It's called Plastic Valor, and it's a channel that I have dedicated recently to scale modeling, particularly military battles throughout history that have been epic in scope. And then more than just building models for the sake of models, I again, not to be self-congratulatory or self-indulgent, but I think Brian can attest to this, that my dioramas tend to be museum worthy. I know that sounds I hate the way that sounded coming out of my mouth. So doing these dioramas and model making that I'm doing now for military battles, I expect them to be something to do with vets. I'm going to use them for our vets. I don't know how, but I'm using it as a way to learn more about history. I want to educate myself. So
what sorry to cut you off. What battle are you working on right now?
Thank you for asking. Battle of the Bulge.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I was just thinking World War II. Yeah,
but I want to be honest with you. I knew nothing about it. So the goal for me is to learn scholastically about the battle that I'm making. My tagline is learning history by making it. And that's what I'm doing. So my YouTube channel is called Plastic Valor. And I would love it if you would subscribe, because my goal is to get to 1,000 subs. And
well, if it's if you just change the channel, I'm already subscribed. You just changed the name, correct? Yeah. Okay.
That's correct. That's exactly.
Yeah, one cool thing I learned about living up here, if you're familiar with the Band of Brothers, Easy Company, Dick Winters, who was the leader of the group, captain, he's only buried like an hour from where I live.
Oh, wow.
So I'm gonna go his town where he retired to is not too far, and so I'm gonna go.
Wow, that's
in
great.
the near future, visit a cemetery, pay my respects.
Yeah.
I believe they have like a small memorial in town for him.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, so, I got Dick Winters here, and then I got Jane Mansfield over here. Jane Mansfield's only like 35 minutes from me, where her final resting place is at.
Well, there you go. All right. All right. Good for you, man.
That'd be, we can kind of do like our own take on the other YouTube channel. We go to famous burial places, Jared.
Hey, we can do that.
Jane Mansfield, she's got a horrific death.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, she does. Yeah. Yes, she does. Yeah.
All right.
So that's it, guys. My YouTube channel, Plastic Valor, and Facebook group, Packanack Lodge. And of course, you can friend me on Facebook too under Ron Gann. So.
And your Instagram is you want to plug your Instagram for your Sackhead?
Yeah, I have two Instagram. I have Mr. Ron Gann for my regular Instagram, and then I have Granite State Jason. Yeah.
Yeah.
For my sorry, I was having a brain fart there. Yeah. So hey, reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I look forward to it. And for those who are thinking about getting a copy of the book or have already gotten a copy of the book, I want to just thank you so much for your support. It means a lot. I did not write this book for money. I wrote it strictly out of love and devotion and wanting to evangelize the flick and make it live beyond the generations. It's 40 years old now. And so I appreciate everybody's support, and I appreciate you guys for giving me this platform.
Pleasure's all
Absolutely.
ours, definitely.
Cool, guys.
Yeah, I get to talk Friday 13th. I mean, we got to get someone on from the Nightmare on Elm Street series, Jared, so you can,
I'll just call Robert. We'll just pull him on.
Well, you can get Beatrice. You're friends with Beatrice.
Yeah,
or your
yeah.
wife is.
We can work on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, Ron, thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you so
Jared,
much.
Any final words before we say later?
That's all I have. Make sure you
Okay.
subscribe to our YouTube. I will post all of Ron's links in the description below. And make sure you keep subscribing so you can win a can of stew. With 2 great autographs on it. So
Yes.
make sure you do that now. This has been the Horror Shed Podcast. We will see you next week.
Take care.
Bye, guys.